Good afternoon and salam alaikum. Fantastic, everybody's up. Super. So I'd like to thank Paul for giving Hitachi the opportunity to present at this event. We are the only IT vendor being allowed to present at this event. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk speeds, feeds, processors, memory, storage. That's all getting irrelevant. All right. We've heard a lot today. Okay. We heard a presentation earlier from Startup Oman. Ines talked about the customer. Right? Customer is very, very key to our business. However, how do you understand your customer? You need to understand what your customer is doing. I'm not talking about stalking the customer, but understanding his patterns. It all comes from data. Right? So data is the focal point of how, I think I'm going to move there because this light is too harsh. Yeah. All right. So understanding data is key. Right? Today, these are exciting times. You must have heard smaller companies are now standing up and having the courage to stand against large conglomerates. They're toppling bigger enterprises. And big enterprises who've been doing businesses traditionally are being forced to transform. Right? Digital transformation is getting imminent more and more as you think about it. So thank you once again. My name is Neville Deboo. I'm from Hitachi Data Systems. So when you saw the speaker list, I'm going to ask you a question. You saw Hitachi down there. What did you just first think? Is this guy going to talk to us about fridges and microwaves? Is that what came to your mind? So I'm going to take 5 seconds in the interest of time, okay, and just ask one question. How big is Hitachi? How many subsidiaries does Hitachi have? Throw me a number. 5 seconds only. Okay? One more? Okay? Let's look. What is Hitachi? 950 plus subsidiaries. Right? Data is in our blood. We are over 100 years old. I'm from Hitachi Data Systems, which is one of the subsidiaries, which is the IT arm of Hitachi. We build trains, we build power plants, we build medical equipment. You can name anything under the sun and we build. Right? And we've been reading and understanding data for as long as we can think of. Right? How many of you here from IT or probably heard the term big data? Right, big data. That's a phenomenon, right? In the last 2 years, everybody's talking big data. What is big data? Right? It's nothing but getting data from multiple sources, large chunks of data, not just structured, unstructured machine data, blending it all together and making sense out of it. Right? And this is something that's just a phenomenon come on just in the last 2 years. We've been doing this for decades. Let's take the example of the bullet train system in Japan. Right? We build the entire system, the trains, the tracks, and it's an SLA-based service that we offer. We are capturing data every second. We build aircraft parts for aircraft engines. So let's look at the A380. Each engine has over 1,000 sensors. And the A380 is sending around 5 terabytes of data per hour of flight. Imagine, now take a flight, one flight from Dubai to San Francisco, 16 hours, 4 engines, and how many more A380s in the air? And we are using that data, analyzing that data, and reading that data, right, for business outcomes. So, we are to diverse businesses. Data is in our blood, right? Data is the biggest and the most key element of digital transformation, right? Today, IT is getting more and more irrelevant, right? Speeds, feeds, cores. I know traditionally that's how IT is done. Nobody really cares, right? Hardware is getting commoditized. Software is fine. It's there. You can utilize it. You want a CRM system, you can do it. However, what's really important is to understand what your customer is doing, right? Give you an example about where companies are actually disrupting. So disruptors are there in every industry. You must have heard of Uber, right? Everybody knows Uber. Is Uber a taxi company? Uber is a software company. Everybody talks about Uber, but I choose to talk about Airbnb. Everybody heard of Airbnb? Right? Airbnb, let's take an example. Right? The biggest hotel chain in the world is Marriott. About 2 years ago, Marriott acquired the Sheraton, the Starwoods chain, and today they are the biggest hotel chain in the world. Right? They have over, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 IT staff. Their market capitalization is $25 billion. That's big, isn't it? For a chain that size. Normal. Airbnb, what do you think their market cap is? With 20 IT staff only. 20 people sitting out of a garage. $20 billion. They are as big as Marriott. It's just 20 people working out of a garage in San Francisco. Right? How cool is that? Guys come in shorts to work. Right? They come on a bike. So, disruptors are there in every industry. Right? And these disruptors are forcing traditional companies to think differently. Right? Today, traditional businesses have been sitting nice and comfortable because they have the larger chunk of the market. But this is forcing companies like Marriott to think differently. Now, we talked about these examples, right? Disruptors are coming up everywhere, okay? You take financial services. We just heard about, I think Hariraj talked about fintech companies, right? Now, fintech companies are really shaking things up in the financial services market. I'm going to take a fantastic example on my next slide on the fintech companies, right? You need to think differently, right? You need to think outside of the customer. You need to open up your ecosystem. Yes, security is an issue, right? But that can be managed. That's just one component. Apart from that, you need to build a larger ecosystem to blend companies from outside. Bring in your competition, it's fine. Work with your competition. In the IT industry, we are known to work with our competition. Right? It's called co-opetition. Right? Expand your horizons. Let's look at what fintech companies are done in the market. Right? Let's look at this block here. The disruptors beat the enablers 3:1. Okay? That's how big that market is. Right? And this is forcing traditionally large banks, large financial institutions to think differently. Right? So a phenomenal sensation that happened about a year ago in China. Now, China is a massive market. Everybody knows about China. Right? 1.3 billion people. All the banks are big. The smallest bank, I think, has about, 20 million accounts. Right? The largest bank will probably have 100 million accounts. So fintech companies, you name the industry. Right? There are disruptors everywhere. And what's really forcing large enterprises to change? Right? CEOs today, do they really care about what's happening today? They don't. They're looking 5 years ahead. Right? They don't want to know what's happening today. They're pretty much in clue with what's going on today in their business. Right? It's a shift from marginal growth to exponential growth. That's what they want. Right? In order to get that differentiation against their competition, you got to do something dramatically different. And so digital transformation holds that promise. Digital transformation. Everybody heard about digital transformation? Right? It sounds like another buzzword, right? IT is known, our industry is very well known to coin these buzzwords. Grid computing, cloud computing, third platform, second platform. Our friends at IDC and Gartner come up with all these terminologies. Right? Digital transformation is a new thing. Right? It's caught on about a year ago, thanks to the likes of Ubers and Airbnbs. Right? Think differently, use data to your advantage. Digital transformation in a nutshell. Okay? It's very, very simple. Every vendor complicates it. We understand data, so I'll help you simplify it. It's how digital transformation is how you leverage IT as the focal point to bring in efficiency, get that differentiation against your competition, and innovate with new business models. Very simple. 3 things. Right? We've been doing things differently. All you need to do is reduce that complexity. Right? The simplest thing we've been doing so far is deal with multiple vendors. Why do we do this? Because we like it. Right? We have a relationship with different vendors. We want to keep everybody happy, and that's created this whole gamut of complexity. Bring in that operational efficiency, simplification, right? Process automation, workflows mobility. It's all about accelerating cost efficiency, right? It's a simple thing, right? If you look at the equation, more number of vendors you deal with, the larger the complexity in your environment and larger the risk to your business. There's a large risk to your business, you're spending more money trying to mitigate that risk. And you just reverse that equation. Lesser the number of vendors you deal with, lesser the complexity. Right? You're streamlining your operations. Very, very simple. Customer experience. We just heard NBAT team, Sherry and Hariraj, talk about iBanking. What was it all about? It's to bring a better customer experience. Right? Let's look at banking, for instance. Now, customer experience is a big thing in banking today. Banks have already started on the big data journey. Right? So let me give you an example. How many banks out here? Banks? Okay, no problem. How many of you have heard of a term called sentiment analysis? Sentiment analysis. Another buzzword in the industry. Not really, it's a banking term. Sentiment analysis. So let's look at it. My father, who's now about 72 years old, he's been banking with one bank for the last, God knows, 50, 60 years. And why did he choose that bank? Because that was closest to home. He still likes that personal touch. On weekends or any time during the day, he can walk to the branch, speak to the teller. He likes that personal touch. Today, how many of you in this audience, raise your hand, go to a branch every week? How many of you go to a branch every month? Okay. How many of you go to a branch every quarter? That should be more hands. How many of you go to a branch once in 6 months? Yeah. I don't remember when was the last time I went to a branch. Right? So we believe in mobile, internet, all of this stuff. And then, what is the simplest thing I do? I go to my branch, ATM doesn't work, or something happens and I'm really upset. What's the first thing I do? Typical human tendency. I post it on social media. Right? Who here is not on Facebook? So I'm the only one, right? I am actually not on Facebook. Right? So my hand is right. Who here is not on Twitter? Okay. But this is what we do, right? And the bank's reputation is at stake. Larger the bank, bigger the reputation to protect. This is sentiment analysis. How do you contact your customer before it goes viral? And this is a big thing across the Middle East. Right? Banks are taking on this journey, taking data from social feeds, taking data from their core systems, blending all of this data. This is big data. Right? It's very simple. It's all about data. How do you understand the patterns of customers? A retail chain, I will not name which country here, is a large retail chain. They want to understand the buying and the movement pattern of their customers in a mall. Right? So what do we do as visitors? I go to a different country. If I'm in the UAE, I have my data package anywhere in the country. I go to a different country, mobile data is very expensive. So I go to a mall, the first thing I do, I connect to Wi-Fi. So they are trying to track the movement pattern of customers by nationality and saying, okay, Neville Deboo, he's walking around this way and he's only going to sports shops, right? So by the time I go to the mall again, they start sending me messages. Go to the Nike store, there's a 25% discount. Or use the Citibank credit card, you get 10% discount, right? This is all sentiment analysis. And this is all about bringing a better customer experience. But again, it comes down to data. When you streamline all of this, right, you can then focus on innovation. Think about new business models. If you have your house in order, everything is simplified, you bring in that operational efficiency, you then have the time to innovate, right? You have invested in expensive talent, right? You don't want to waste that talent sitting on the desk just doing standard mundane jobs. You can use that talent to innovate, bring out new ideas, right? It's all about data. Because expectations from IT is the core for digital transformation and data, right? You talked about NBAT, iBanking is basically IT. They've leveraged IT to come up with a better customer experience, right? Everybody has to leverage out of data. CEOs only care about a few things. They don't really care about speeds, feeds. This is the fastest processor. Nobody really cares today. We don't care today as an IT vendor. I don't. I tell my customer, it doesn't matter. Right? Number of cores, number of CPUs, it is absolutely irrelevant. Right? CEOs have basically just 3 priorities or maybe 2. Right? They want to innovate faster. They want to get ahead of their nearest competition. They want to make a difference in the marketplace. They want to monetize on what they have today. Right? IT's role is also changing. It's no longer about having a CIO sitting there just rolling out applications just because the business wants it. Right? Today, IT is being seen as a knowledge advisor, more like a business innovator. So an interesting survey was done, I think by Forrester or Tower Group. Right? This has been done every year for the last 3 years. And the survey is about how closely does IT and business work together. All of you are from business, I guess, correct? Okay. All of you have IT in your organizations, correct? How often do you sit with IT? I'm going to ask you as business. Right. And now that has changed. Let's go back 5 years. Did you really do that same thing that you're doing today? You did not. Right? You treated IT as a cost. Right? We want to roll out a new application. Let's call the CIO. I want this. Okay, can you roll it out? Then he starts looking, researching, and the CIO would do everything independently. That is changing. So the recent survey that came out, 45% of IT decisions are being made by LOBs, lines of business. Right? That divide is disappearing. Right? That big gap between IT and business. Right? And that's the whole journey going on a digital transformation path. So, yes, it's imperative, but at the same time, it's not easy. Right? It's really not easy. It is an investment that you have to make in a lot of areas. Right? You have to talk about processes, people, and technology. Out of these three, which one do you think is the biggest problem? Thank you. People. Right? We've been working in a particular fashion. Humans don't like change. This is the biggest problem. Right? I don't like change. Right? Nobody likes change, but change is imminent. Right? Process, people, and technology. Yes, technology is the last piece, but the biggest hindrance to digital transformation is people. Okay? Because the first thing any person in an organization will think of, oh, digital transformation project, which means you're bringing in automation, which means I'm going to lose my job. That is not correct. That is not correct. Automation does not get rid of people. People are assets. Right? And you got to leverage on those assets to bring in that automation. Right? So that's a misconception out there, which I thought I'll just clarify. Right? People immediately push back. But yes, assets are very, very key to business. So IT requires modernization, to enable innovation. Now you'll see two things out here. The second platform or mode 1, third platform or mode 2. Anybody heard of these terminologies? Second platform, third platform, mode 1, mode 2. Has anybody heard of these? Everybody knows IDC? Everybody knows Gartner? All right, so these are the two usual suspects. I hope nobody from these two companies is here. So these are the two usual suspects who come up with these interesting terms and jargon, as we call about in this industry, right? And confuse everybody, but that's what it is. Second platform is what IDC called a few years ago, which is basically modernizing your core. Okay? And today they talk about the third platform, which is mobilizing your data and innovating with data. Right? Mode 1 and Mode 2 is Gartner. Gartner talks about a bimodal IT vision and an IT strategy. In a sense, it's the same thing. Right? This is what you've done a few years ago. You've built in certain processes in place. Okay? You got an ERP system if you're a manufacturing house, or if you're a bank, you've got a core banking system in place. You modernized your core, you built in processes in place. You kind of brought in a bit level of operational efficiency in there to streamline your process. At the same time, what's coming next is something you need to think about, is how do you leverage on that data and innovate with data? How do you convert data into innovation? There's another interesting term. How many of you have heard of a term called dark data? Not you, Paul. Dark data. So let's say you're an ERP, or let's say you have an ERP and you're a big retail or a manufacturing firm. You've got data for years. Right? When was the last time you touched data which was 10 years old? That's all dark data. So Gartner guesses somewhere between 70 to 85%. Now that's a huge chunk of data in any and every organization is dark data. Right? You've just forgotten about it, but there could be some real valuable information in there. What Gartner IDC is saying, use that data. Right? Bring that data out, make it alive, right? To leverage that data for more businesses. Right? So this is the usual gap I talked about, right? The business paradigm and the IT paradigm. Slowly that gap is vanishing. Right? But business only thinks about outcomes. That's all they care about. They don't care about speeds, feeds, applications. They just want to think about operations process, customer experience, and new business models. That's what they want to bring in. Right? But that great divide is slowly vanishing. And there's one thing that is amalgamating both these departments is basically data. Right? Is how you build that foundation to accelerate your digital transformation journey. Right? Data is very, very key. I know people don't really give data that much importance. You want to do anything in IT. Just a while ago, the NBAT presentation, I was listening to it, internet banking, right? It's about bringing a better customer experience. You want to understand the data of your customer, and then you can actually target the specific customer in the right way. Right? For instance, I'll give you an example. Some banks I've dealt with, which I don't deal with anymore, not NBAD, but there's another bank in the UAE I dealt with. I had a credit card with them. I closed that credit card down. For about 18 months, I still got a credit card statement in paper with zero value on it. Right? They don't know what their customers are doing. It was a small bank. So, if you know what your customer is doing, you can probably sell them better. So data is coming from all sorts of sources. We've all heard of structured data, right? That's something we put in databases. It's in a nice structured form. You can read it, you can query it, right? What has really grown in the last 10 years is unstructured data. Who would have thought, right? Emails, social media, documents, videos, audio files. That's just grown 10 times or even more. Today, I sit in an office next to somebody and the guy sends me an email. It just annoys me, right? You can just walk up to me and talk, right? But that's become like a thing, right? Unstructured data is just growing exponentially, right? And then there is no limit to this. IoT data, machine data that's growing, right? It's how do you blend all of this, right? IoT is becoming really, really big nowadays. So I'll give you an example. A few months ago, a friend of mine moved into a brand new villa in Dubai. Right? So he said, Neville, if you're free on the weekend, why don't you just come over and help me set up the Wi-Fi network? I said, okay, I'll come by. I'm not really a technical guy, but I know the basics about setting up Wi-Fi networks. So we were setting it up, and we started just searching for IP addresses. We found about 12 unknown IP addresses. Right? And that's basically the new construction is all with machines. Right? So your AC thermostat, okay, is all sending data into the cloud. These are IP devices. You can actually control the AC. I can control the AC of my friend's house from my mobile phone. All right? If I want to play a prank, I can just switch it off right now when it's 42 degrees. 45 degrees, brilliant, isn't it? All right? Fire alarms, all right? Everything is now, every machine is getting sensorized, is sending data to the cloud. Right? It's all about having more and more machines out there than you don't know and you don't know of, and that's the big concern, right? If you know of, then you can actually get more sense out of it. So data sources, and what we can help you do, we understand this, right? You need to get data from all of these sources. You need to manage that data. You need to make sure that all of this data is kept secured, right? And it's available for governance, right? Access the data everywhere. When I say everywhere, I mean it, everywhere. Not just from your corporate network. You could be on the road. You should be able to access all your data from your mobile phone. All right? Within Hitachi, give you an example, we have something called as a content platform, which we call as Anywhere. All right? My data is all safe. It's all on my phone. I can access it from my phone, from my iPad, from my mobile phone, from my laptop, from any device. I can connect onto a public internet laptop or somebody's public, internet cafe, and I can access my data. It's available to me everywhere. So I lose my phone, I lose my laptop, I get robbed because of the countries I go to. I cover emerging markets, as Middle East, Africa, Turkey, everywhere there's war, terrorism, diseases, right? So it's safe. Corporate data is safe. Data is available everywhere. And most important is, how do you bring in data-driven insight? So that's another term that's getting coined. The way traditionally businesses are being done. Let's say you're a CEO or a CFO. You want to know the financial state of your business. You go to your IT and say, I need to know this. What do? They take about 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes the next day is when you get the actual financial report. Because of legacy systems, that's application-driven insight. Today, you got to empower your businesses, your CEOs, your CFOs, yourself, to have that visibility of your business real time, right? Everything should be available on your mobile or any device, irrespective, right? That's data-driven insight. The data is available. How do you make sense out of it? So we modernize operations, you empower innovation, and this is the key thing, right? Blending data from multiple sources. You hear a lot of buzzwords in this industry. Big data. The new word for big data is now data lake. The reason for that is it talks about having data from different sources, right? Nobody thought about machine data a few years ago. Machine data is becoming bigger than your unstructured data. So you take your structured, unstructured machine data, blend it all together, build your data lake, and provide IT as a service. That IT as a service allows and empowers business to go after new business models, right? That is key. It's not about speeds and feeds anymore. It's how do you empower your CEOs or yourself, if you're the CEO, to go after new business models. If you have all the data on your customers, you know what your customer is doing, and you know what to do with your customer, how to target your customer, right? You're not going in blind. You're going in well aware, right? That's mainly the story. Data is key to your business's future. So we talked about data strategy. Right? It's all about management, governance, mobility, and analytics. It's key. Got to keep this in mind. If we talked about building an agile IT environment, having data lakes, adopting open source technologies. Right? Everybody believes that adopting open source is risky. It's not. That's the wave of the future. Right? Why do you want to get tied down to legacy vendors? You don't have to. Right? Legacy vendors are slowly dying out. Legacy technologies are slowly dying out. The market, the industry is moving open source. Right? Think about business outcomes. It doesn't really matter. You have a large IT organization, a small IT organization. It doesn't really matter. Right? Speeds, feeds, hardware, it's all getting commoditized. You need to think about business outcomes. You need to think about bringing in automation. You need to think about bringing in newer products that you can have that edge over your competition. It's about differentiation. The only way you can get that edge over your competition is if you can differentiate yourself from your competition, right? Hitachi, right vendor. The reason I say that, we are a 100-year-old company. We know data. We know how to read data. We understand data. Nobody else knows the way we do it, right? I'll leave you with the final quote from IDC. Right? They said this last year, within the next 2 years, so by next year. And we are seeing this change in the industry. Right? 2/3 of the global 2,000 CEOs have digital transformation at the center of their corporate strategy. And this is key, because no matter where you are in the world, no matter what industry you are in, there are always these small emerging companies that are ready to disrupt large conglomerates. It's more like a David and Goliath. And they're getting more and more successful. Why are they successful? Because they are willing to take the risk. Right? They're small, they're a 20-man outfit. They try one technology, they start something, it fails, no problem. They get up, they start something new until it works. But as a large organization, you cannot afford to take that risk. Therefore, think differently. Think about getting onto the journey of digital transformation, how you can transform your organization to get that competitive advantage and monetize from that. So, are you ready to get started? If not, I'm around the rest of the day. We can always have a chat. As I said, although I'm from the IT industry, I don't talk speeds and fees. They're absolutely irrelevant. Let's talk about how do we help you grow your business. Thank you very much.